Hello, everyone, and welcome to WooStream, where we're bringing Willamette to you. We're so glad you're joining us for this evening's Parents and Family Forum. My name's Eric Lasan, and I'm with Parent Engagement. Before we begin, let me share a few logistical items. This session will operate much like a webinar, so the microphone on your computer will not be active during this meeting. We also have Sayer Cohen from Parent Engagement managing production this evening. We will monitor the Q&A tab at the bottom of your Zoom screen throughout our presentation. So please submit your questions as you have them. You can also use the Q&A function if you're having technical difficulties, and Sayer or I will do our best to help. So capping off a full day of university-wide Civic Commons events and discussions, this evening's session will focus on civic engagement at Willamette. So let's begin. I'm excited to introduce our Assistant Dean for Civic Engagement, Dr. Tommy Van Cleave. Tommy began his work as Assistant Dean for Civic Engagement in November of 2022. In this role, he develops and supports efforts to deepen the university's commitment to civic life, service, and community engagement. Through partnerships with faculty, staff, students, and members of the larger community, the primary goal is to create opportunities for students to explore their commitments to the public good in ways that are meaningful for themselves and community partners. Dr. Van Cleave is an intercultural and civic-engaged learning scholar and practitioner. He earned his doctorate in post-secondary educational leadership from Portland State University, where he coordinated a graduate degree in international civic engagement and taught graduate courses on curriculum development and community engagement. Previously, he was the founding director of service and experiential learning at Iona College in New York, and the executive director for international education at the University of New Haven in Connecticut. So Tommy, thank you for joining us this evening and moderating. I'll hand it off to you now.
Thank you so much, Eric. Hello, everyone. As Eric said, my name is Tommy Van Cleave. I use he, him, his pronouns. And I am a kid of the Midwest. I was born and raised outside Chicago, but I've been in Oregon for about 10 years cumulatively, Portland, and then East Coast, and then in Salem now. And it's just a thrill to be with Willamette University. I'm excited to pull back the curtain and describe some of the reasons that we do what we do with civic engagement, help tell the story of how civic engagement is more than a traditional volunteer program, that we're really emphasizing our relationship with our communities and focusing on mutually transformative relationships with the community. So what is civic engagement? So that'll be the next slide, Eric.
Let's just make sure we note that Jeff and
absolutely
are with us this evening. Did you want to just say a quick thing or two about them, and then we can continue?
Absolutely. I jumped the gun. Yeah. So with this, I invited some of my colleagues who are doing this work in with civic engagement, but in their own specific departments. So we have Jeff DeJavier he's a career advisor for public service, government, and the sciences. And then also the Reverend Pearl Player, who is our university chaplain. They'll both be describing some specific opportunities within their departments of programs that have civic engagement components that use the model that I'm going to be describing for you all. So what is civic engagement? So at a baseline, civic engagement is working to make a difference in the civic life of our communities and developing the combination of knowledge, skills, values, and motivation to make a difference. It means promising the quality of life in a community through both political and non-political processes. Really what this is both developing ability to do something and proclivity, or the desire to do that. And then the outcomes of civic engagement. So we're going to start over on the right first in the red, that as I described, with student agency, it's that ability, so the skill set to take action, And then proclivity, the desire, that internal motivation to make a difference. Because if we think about ability without a desire or motivation, then that doesn't really do a lot of good, or a lot of motivation and desire, but without the skills, then we're kind of in the same place, or we might even be a place where we can do more harm than good in a volunteer or civic engagement opportunity. The next is community solidarity. So this is really internalizing an interconnectedness with community members. And even though we may only have students for 4 years here in Salem, they are still a part of Salem. They are a part of what makes the fabric of Salem great. And what comes with that are responsibilities for giving back, because they are consuming some of the things that Salem has to offer. But what are they doing in terms of returning a sense of engagement or activity to that community, as opposed to it just being like an extended, vacation or visit? No, you're here. Your fate and our community's fate are tied even in these couple of years. So what do you need to know in order to understand our community, the situations that our community is facing? Do you understand local politics within our city hall, within our school boards? Those are where some really important decisions are being made. So who are those players? What are the decisions that are being made? And what are some points of leverage that we may have for adding to that conversation? And then the next is academic advocacy. So this is really taking what's in the classroom and bringing it to the community to institute change. Whether you're a public health student, chemistry, biology, exercise science, there are academic skills that can be applied to meet a community identified goal. So let's use that, right? Because there is a need, there is that knowledge. Put them together, and really it makes sense, because it, as opposed to students writing a paper or doing a project and it just disappearing into the ether and not being used, what if someone could use it? And even better, what if it could make someone's life better? So the spectrum of civic engagement, this could be, so we're going to start at the bottom, just a one-time, a co-curricular volunteering opportunity. It could be on a Saturday. We're going to go over to Bush Park. We are going to plant some trees, or we are going to clean up the waterfront. We are going to go to a Habitat for Humanity home build. So the longevity is really short, but it's also easy to jump on board and to participate in that project. Next could be an alternative break, and we are planning on bringing those back. And so this is like a week-long opportunity for students to immerse themselves in a community, in a culture, in a specific context, to understand more of what makes this community tick and whatever it is, and what are some lessons that could be applied back here in Salem. The next is curricular community-based learning, also called service learning. This would be within a particular course. So if hypothetically there were an accounting class, let's say, and students were learning about taxes for nonprofit organizations. Instead of just learning about it in theory, what if for nonprofit organizations, they were able to support a small, bootstrapped organization and help them with their taxes when that organization couldn't afford to hire an accountant to do that. So the student is learning more about that content area. The community is benefiting because they are getting something that otherwise they might not be able to acquire. And then the faculty member in there is helping to make sure that whatever the students deliver to the community partner is of high quality, especially in that circumstance where it's about taxes. Next is internships. So this would be a prolonged commitment to an organization, but it'd be one student in one organization for at least a semester or a summer, focusing on a particular community identified goal or need. Next are student research projects. A lot of times this looks like capstones or theses. Because what if the capstone or the final product that students produce in college lived on? If it didn't just sit on a shelf somewhere in the library, but it was applied directly to a community need. And that experience of that back and forward of the community partner helping to shape and to guide the student in a really real world experience. And also it's a culmination of their time at Willamette. The next are faculty research projects. So this would be where a faculty member maybe gets a grant and has a research agenda that has a really specific goal with either focused on community health, community equity, making our community a more livable, more just place, and a student partnering with them in that really high level thinking of faculty research. So obviously the complexity increases as you move up these, I guess, stair steps. But what we want to make sure is that with all of these opportunities, that there's an on-ramp to something that's next, right? So the one-time co-curricular volunteering opportunity, that it doesn't just end there, but instead it is that there's an opportunity to continue that conversation and to understand what are the root issues that are happening within our city or our state that may be perpetuating this community need. So these are just some of the opportunities that we have either facilitated or supported, like a one-time volunteering opportunity with the Miriam Polk Food Share. A co-curricular community-based learning program that we had was a communication course that collaborated with the Center for 50 Plus here in town. And with that, they helped their members write their autobiographies, which is really a rewarding experience. And those biographies, or autobiographies, are now being stored in the Willamette archives. Next are internships. So there is the NUO program, which is a program that is sponsored by my office, but is in collaboration with career development and also the chaplain. And that is an opportunity for students to do a civic engagement internship over the summer, but in a cohort model, because some of these can be really heavy, really weighty, just emotional experiences. So how can you lean on your fellow Bearcats to support you in these situations? So we had a student last summer who was working with the Center for Hope and Safety. And that is a resource, a shelter, an emergency response for women who have experienced, are experiencing, or are escaping domestic violence situations. And they were a part of the hotline. And so as you can imagine, there's some really intense conversations that are happening so that they have a place to process that with their peers and form meaningful relationships with them, so that when they have a hard day, that they have a support system to lean on. Next is a student research project. One of them, a student is writing their thesis on entries to generational wealth for individuals experiencing homelessness. So while it's going beyond getting someone into housing, so either a Section 8 voucher or into a rental housing situation, what does it mean for someone to enter into home ownership, right? Because generational wealth passes through real estate a lot of times. So what is an on-ramp for our neighbors who are experiencing homelessness into home ownership? And so they're looking at the policies from different states or different programs, and then we'll be sharing those with community partners here in Salem. Next is the faculty research projects. So we have the environmental health hazards projects with Marion Polk County. If you are from the area, you remember the ice storm from a couple of years ago, or the heat waves that have been happening. So our public health faculty are partnering with our environmental science faculty, with some English professors, with history professors, and are helping to understand what are the effects of extreme weather on particularly marginalized communities, but coming at it through all different angles. So that's faculty research, but the students are doing the data collection as a part of a class and data analysis as a part of a class. Those results are then being given to the county that can then make policy decisions based off of those findings. One of the important conversations we want to have with civic engagement at Willamette is what we're doing performative? Are we just doing it for the optics of it? Or is it transformative? We want to undo the mythology that volunteerism is always a good thing, because it's not always a good thing. It can actually cause harm in communities. And can we shift the conversation from if we volunteer to how we volunteer? We want to work to avoid unintentional byproducts of service or volunteer experiences like the savior complex, thinking that, oh, well, we have all the solutions, so let's just do what we think is best and not consult the community or other experts. It can also lead to cultural insensitivity when we don't know the cultural values of a particular community that we may be working with, or thinking that their cultural values are the same as ours, or that maybe ours are better. We want to make sure that we don't reinforce stereotypes, that we don't become guilty of tokenism, or that we don't instill a new prejudice in students or in ourselves, to be honest. We want to intentionally focus on the opportunity to develop intercultural competence, of cultural humility, of working to undo stereotypes, whether we know we have them or maybe they're buried under a few layers. We want to develop a sense of agency, that internal drive, that locus of motivation where we want to and we can and we will make a difference. And then finally, empathy, of being able to understand another person's viewpoint and honor that, even if it is not our own. So I want to describe a program that is facilitated by my office and was supported through a grant that we received through the Hull Foundation. And this does have student employees that are a part of that. And unfortunately, we cannot offer job opportunities to everybody. But I do want to describe them and show whether folks are a part of our Catalyst staff or a part of our campus community, of how this program will hopefully support them. So the first is equitable education, and that's a partnership with Bush Elementary School that's right across the street from campus, where we run an after-school program. Also the Boys and Girls Club, where we are working with high schoolers to develop their resumes for summer job. And then the Gilbert House Museum, which is right in downtown Salem, and is a cultural and a art-based and STEM museum for kids. We have Healthy Aging, which is a collaboration for the Center for 50 Plus, and Windsor Rehabilitation Center, which is actually here in Salem. And then Inclusive Communities for adults with developmental disabilities. We have partnerships with Shangri-La, Best Buddies, and the Special Olympics. Welcoming New Neighbors, that works with Salem for Refugees, for folks who are new to the Salem area with either refugee status or who are pursuing asylum status. Health Equity, Salem Free Clinics, the Mid-Willamette Valley Community Action Agency, Housing for All, Climate Justice, Democratic Engagement, because democracy is not just every 4 years, that is in between as well. And in some areas that we are working to develop our food security, and then fostering connection. That one I'm particularly excited about, and this is in response to some of the work that the Attorney General had done that was looking at the health impacts of loneliness and isolation, that the health impacts are right up there with a poor diet, with alcohol use and abuse, with smoking. So what can we do as a community to advance that conversation? I do want to pay, or at least draw attention here to the language that we're choosing to use. These are not talking about let's go to housing for all. We're not talking about homelessness, right? Because we don't want to approach our communities in a deficit way. We don't want to put ourselves on a pedestal. We want to kind of recalibrate the relationship so that we come at it as a peer and as a neighbor. And Salem has committed to the goal of providing housing for all. We believe that that is a right, and we believe that that is a responsibility. This is also in line with the UN the UN sustainability goals that are pretty lofty. They're pretty big. But each one of these goal areas is tied to either the UN goals, it could be a national effort, it could be state, county, it could be even within our city's strategic plan. But we want to come alongside others who are pursuing a goal of a healthier, a more just, or a more equitable community, and not creating these out of the thin air because we think that it should be done. How do we tie this to something else? So students do the relationship building with community partners, with organizations. They also need to know what is happening in the state in terms of legislation and policy that may be coming up for a vote within the last legislative session. Our students were preparing testimony for the legislation in some of these areas. And then also, what are some things that their peers need to know about the community goals that they don't know already? Because if you're from the Salem area, you know about the payroll tax that was proposed recently. And the payroll tax was in part supported and initiatives by the Center for 50 Plus. Well, why does Salem need a payroll tax? Well, in order to understand why we need a payroll tax, we have to talk about just taxes and property taxes. And in Oregon, property taxes have been capped. They were capped since the 90s. There was a ballot initiative that capped taxes. So there's no more revenue in that particular area in order to develop that. Well, why was this a ballot initiative? How do you even do a ballot initiative? What is the perspective of folks who oppose the payroll tax, right? How do you step into their shoes and understand how they experience this particular proposal? We went to town halls, and there was debate, and there were people who were excited and emotional and angry, but who had a stake in the game, right? That is community. That is local politics. And we want students to have that capacity to get involved and engage and to know who's our city councilor. Where do they stand on this? What is their plan to make sure that the Center for 50 Plus stays funded? Again, as I said, unfortunately, I don't have jobs for all of the students, but catalysts are responsible for disseminating what they know into the greater community context. So like the baseball team, when they wanted to do a service project, they called us to help structure that so that they could add depth to the experience for the baseball players. They absolutely could have gone and done their service project and left and that be it. But by inviting us into that opportunity, we were able to talk about food security or food insecurity in Marion and Polk County. We are able to say, like, based off of how many of you are here, statistically, there could be 5 or 6 who would either currently use or have used the resources of a food bank. Why do we need food banks, right? Like, why do food banks have to fundraise from private citizens and are not fully supported by either the state or the county or whatnot? Those are important conversations to have so that everybody starts to unpack some of the deeper issues that our community might be experiencing. So the NUO internship, so NUO stands for not unto ourselves. And if you are familiar with the Willamette motto, not unto ourselves alone are we born. No one had used that yet, so I took it, and it makes so much sense. It fits so well with what we're doing in terms of looking at our community as a partner, and it is not just these 4 years are not just about us, but about a greater context and who we want to be in society. We were able to offer a stipend, and if needed, so if a community organization couldn't afford an intern, that we were able to support them or direct them to support on campus. And Reverend Pearl and Jeff are going to be describing some of those funding opportunities. And housing. It's an intentional community. I really want to emphasize that, where people could explore nonprofit field as a career, but really learn more deeply about Salem and its goals. I really want people to love and care about Salem, not that they stay in Salem, but that they have those skills to understand and then love and care about whatever community that they're involved in the future. And then were able to participate in service opportunities outside of that internship as well. So we plan on offering that this summer, and are excited for further collaborations with both Reverend Pearl and Jeff. What I'm going to do is I'm going to hand this off to Jeff next, who's going to be able to describe really practically, like, what does this look like within career development? What are opportunities that students have had in the past? What are some on-ramps to civic engagement, but specifically through career development in the future? So, Jeff.
Awesome. Thank you, Tommy. So first, I wanted to kind of describe our office's model for career development. So we call it the career development cycle. And basically, everything starts with self-knowledge. So like, what do you know about yourself? What are your interests? What do you want to build experience in? And we view this as a way for students to say, maybe I'm interested in education. Maybe I should find opportunities to kind of make sure that that's actually the path that I'd like to take. And so they can maybe volunteer at a school. They could participate in Tommy's Education Catalyst. And then we always say go into research and networking. I always tell students whenever they do an internship, they're volunteering somewhere, half of it's what you learn, but half of it's who you meet. So, you never know who you're going to meet. You never know what opportunities will come from those people. You never know who they'll introduce you to, what you'll learn from them. I've found mentors in the strangest places. And so I encourage students to always keep an open mind with that as well. And then the third piece is experiences and opportunities. So this is actually going out and securing that internship, going out and saying, I want to be a part of this faculty member's research project. Just actually getting those experiences and then do a reassessment to see, is that really what you want to do kind of full time after graduation? Sometimes it's really validating for students and they say, this is exactly what I want to do. I'm so glad I did this. And sometimes they're like, this wasn't really a fit. So I'm going to go back to this, like the drawing board, see what else I could think of and see how that can play into it. So that is the career development cycle. And so the other piece that I wanted to talk about before I talk more about some of our services and how we get students involved in civic engagement is the NACE career readiness competencies. So NACE is a professional organization for career services people. And they have 8 competencies. They survey a ton of employers, thousands of them, and see what are they looking for in students. And a lot of these things are things that students get through civic engagement opportunities. So the first one's professionalism and work ethic. This is, to me, it's really how you show up, how intentional is your mindset going into an opportunity. Are you there to actually learn, or are you there because you have to and you're not really taking it seriously? The second one, communication. This one is by and far, from what I have seen, the most sought after skill from employers. I have seen students learn about communication through classes, through different volunteering opportunities, internships. Getting that professional communication, both verbal and written, is huge. Critical thinking and problem solving, teamwork, collaboration, all of these really come from civic engagement opportunities. So I just wanted to bring that to all of your attention so that way you could see kind of what we're thinking about when we talk to students about skills that they are going to use in their future careers. Okay, so now what do we actually do about this? So the first thing I want to tell you all about is our summer internship funds. So the Career Development Office has, I want to say we give about $50,000 to $60,000 a year to students who are either in low paying opportunities or unpaid opportunities. We try to find ways to kind of alleviate some of that financial burden, because we know that there is some students can do those opportunities unpaid, but then there's some who are, paying for themselves to go through college. They have to pay their own rent. And we want to help alleviate some of that. So we do provide some funding for that. The applications are going to open up starting around spring break, which is next week. So we're going to start putting up flyers soon. So tell your students to look into that. The only thing that we require for that is we require them to either be in the interview process for an opportunity or have already found an opportunity. So there's a bunch of different categories. It's all on the career development website. So if you take a look at that, you can see the different categories and what students could be eligible for. We also have the paid fund. So this is a fund that operates during the school year. So this is a fund that is designed for students who come from underrepresented identities. And really, there's not a specific purpose for it. So we've had students who want to go to a conference and they can use the paid fund for that. They can use the paid fund to help secure funding to potentially go give a presentation about an opportunity that they did. So if they want to present their research, if they want grad school application fees to be covered, the paid fund can also do that. Can also pay for professional clothing and things like that. So some of those are things that people will need for different opportunities. We also offer academic credit for internships. So this can also include different civic engagement opportunities as well. We offer academic credit in the summer as well as in the fall and the spring. And so if students are wanting to earn both department credits, so that means like if you wanted to earn biology specific credit, public health specific credit, English specific credit, so it could count towards your major. Or we also offer IDS credit, which is more of a general elective credit. Students could do that. It's 1 credit per 30 hours that a student works. So this is a really great opportunity for students to, earn academic credit for the things that they're already doing. I also wanted to mention our health professions program. So when it comes to civic engagement, all of our career communities, so we have 6 career communities, all of them have elements of civic engagement. Health professions is the one that I think has it more strongly integrated, and it's almost a requirement. So if any of your students are pre-med students, they're wanting to go to any sort of optometry program, medical school, PA school, they will have to get clinical hours. They'll have to do job shadowing. So we have a lot of partnerships locally. Tommy already mentioned several of them, but like the Salem Free Clinic is one that we often send students to go volunteer at to get those patient contact hours. And part of it, sometimes the students are like, why am I doing this? And it's to see, one, do you actually want to do this? Do you want to be interacting with patients all day in your career? Do you want to be, having these difficult conversations, seeing the things that you see? So it's a great way to get students to see this is what it's really like to work in the medical field. We also partner with the NUO program. So I'll be joining Tommy this summer for various outings. But we also help students find opportunities that can qualify as a NUO internship. I saw that we did have a question in the chat about summer internships and how students can connect for the opportunities. And I thought I would just answer that real quick. So they could come talk to anyone in the career development office. So for example, I advise for all science students as well as anyone who's interested in like policy, pre-law, any sort of government work. So they can meet with me if that's the interest areas that they have. But we also have an advisor for business, healthcare, arts as well as like a general liberal arts, like English, history. We have an advisor for each of those areas. They could come talk to us. We help students every day identify opportunities. We show them where we look for opportunities. And that way they could connect with those opportunities through that. We also can give them strategies if they're nervous about reaching out or connecting with people. We have a comprehensive networking guide that has example template emails that they could send places to be like, here's a way that we would recommend you interact with people if you kind of want to do the cold calling approach. So yeah. And then I don't have a slide for this, but I did want to mention that we have had students kind of volunteering and doing internships in a civic engagement manner all over the place. I had a student who is doing research. They did research last summer on how people who are in college access resources like within the local community, particularly like for mental health. So mental health in Oregon is not the strongest. There's a lot of gaps in that. And so they're trying to find ways that students can access those resources over the summer when they happen to be away. So, yeah.
All right. Thanks so much, Jeff. And now we will move on to the Office of Spiritual and Religious Life and Civic Engagement with Pearl.
Thank you, Eric. Thank you so much. And thank you, Tommy, for inviting me here. It's good to be here with you all in this space. I put a few slides up and they have a lot of words, but I'm not going to read them to you, I promise. The model for the Office of Spiritual and Religious Life, and you see the mission there, is to provide a space for well-being and connection. And that means broadly not a room, but a space. And so we hope that everywhere that we go, any programming that we do, any training and interaction with students that happen is in the vein of providing opportunity to foster well-being and opportunity to make connections. And so, the areas that we cover include spiritual and religious life, yes, but also ethical life, inner care generally for those who don't necessarily directly relate to spirituality and or religion, grief management, emotional wellness is a big one, and many matters of social justice. Next slide. Yeah. The way that students embody our mission is not only, it might look like it's interiorly focused only, but the way that they embody our mission of service is not only inwardly, but also through service. And so two of the top ways that occurs is through a course. It's IDS 202, if you want to tell your students. It's offered every semester, and it's called Convo, short for convocation, community, campus community, and Cosmos. And I'll tell you more about that in a moment. The other way is, and it's a 2-credit course established by one of our former chaplains 25 years ago. Our annual Lear Summer Service internship is the other way that, my lights just went off, that the Office of Spiritual and Religious Life engages students in civic engagement directly, making connections and hopefully fostering well-being. Next slide. And so here you'll see some of our students in the picture on a nature walk, a spiritual and nature walk through campus. And so they're looking at and they're understanding the various sacred spaces on campus and why they exist, why they're included there. In that photo, they're at the Rose Garden on campus. But weekly convocation is typically on Thursdays, so mostly during the noon hour, during the lunch hour, but can also happen other times of the day. And it's an opportunity for students. Formerly, Willamette was a full-on religious institute founded by the United Methodist Church, and we had mandatory chapel. That has made its way through the decades to a course called Convocation. And so in that course, students themselves get to program the weekly convocation that addresses ethical dilemmas, it says, that addresses issues that are timely and relevant to social action and social matters happening in the world and or on campus or in our communities. Trying to point out some important things to you. Because it's a course, students have to actually do research, write papers after every convocation to demonstrate to demonstrate the effectiveness, the of each and the sort of the effectiveness, that's the best word, of each convocation. Next slide. Here's a list of some of that I excerpted from this year's convocations to give you an idea of how the convocations are indeed acts of civic engagement. And every convocation at Willamette is open to the general public. A few that I like to point out, if you can read through the list yourself, but one was the current, 2 weeks ago, we had one on the genocide in the modern world. It's a wonderful presentation by a couple of our students that had done research on several different acts of genocide that are occurring today, to broaden that topic as to be more inviting and more inclusive, as opposed to focusing on just one particular event that's occurring. We also have a student on campus, Hattie, who is a member of the Grand Ronde, and she was invited in by another student to give us a history on that tribe and to teach us some Indigenous beading. One that was also particularly interesting was held last semester on houselessness, not homelessness, but houselessness and extreme weather. Tommy mentioned some of this earlier, some of the extreme weather events that we've had in the past, say, 5 years. And we talked about the impacts. We had pastor from Church at the Park come as a guest speaker, and students from our Climate Action Club talk about the work that they did. And it's a space where we can bring together not only our experiences and share about our experiences, but to develop ideas about how we can now go out and make a difference. Next slide. Oh, I didn't mean to keep it there, but each year the students are trying to attend to and invite the HIV Alliance to campus, where they give a very detailed talk on HIV, very informative, dispelling many myths that go along with HIV, and also offering free testing on campus. And so I want to point that out as well. The Lear Summer Service Internship is an endowment, benefactors Dwight and Margaret Lear. You may hear that name often around campus as their endowment funds many different opportunities. The one that my office oversees is the Summer Service Internship. It was actually originally established to send students on mission trips. And so it's still available for students to provide service either locally, nationally, or even internationally if the opportunity presents itself. The fund can provide a stipend Right now, it hovers around an equivalent of about $15 an hour. And it's a case-by-case basis. It can include money for housing near the site. It can also include money for both travel, if it's abroad or in another part of the states, and ground transportation, if that is needed to do the service, to provide the service. It has to be non-self-serving, but outwardly serving. And I'll show you some examples. Oh, and although it's not the new internship, the benefactors did offer as a basis for this particular part of the fund our motto, "Not unto ourselves alone are we born." And so the point of it was to get students out and into the community, community with a small c, so very broadly, to provide service. On the next slide are some examples, some recent examples of where our Lear interns have served. Here locally, at the Boys and Girls Club. Last summer, I had a student at the Lead Haiti Foundation working on. She was working as an intern in the sort of marketing and communication function of the foundation to serve the girls in Haiti. And the quote at the bottom of the page is from this particular intern. I found this internship site to be a great and accurate way to understand how social justice foundations operate and their processes in turning passion into change. It's an example similar to what Jeff was describing, where students can use their own academic, vocational interests in service. And so if next slide, final slide, that's me. And that's how if you're on social media, you can follow the Chaplain's Office and the Office of Spiritual and Religious Life at Woo Chaplains on Instagram or Chaplains Woo on Facebook. And you'll see all the different opportunities that come from this office and all the ways that they intersect with civic engagement. Thank you.
All right. Thanks so much, Pearl. And we are at the question portion of our evening. And I think there's a couple follow-up questions about internships. And so maybe we'll do those as a 2-for-1 with Jeff. And then there's another more general question that, unless others come in, that'll be our last question. So how can a student find service opportunity that works best for them if they're unsure where to start? Actually, that's more of a service opportunity in general, maybe internship, maybe service. So Tommy, actually, how about if we'll start with you and then we'll circle to Jeff after this.
Yeah, I think, so we have our newsletter, we have our Instagram, we have all that stuff. But if a student wants to have a conversation with us, we are more than happy to do that. And either schedule it and put it on our GCALs. We are very GCAL dependent on this campus. So I'm pretty flexible in, like, if a student sees an opening in my GCAL, put yourself on it, and then it is an appointment. I would recommend them to, they can send us an email. And if there's a particular area that they're interested in, I can then set them up for a lunch meeting or a coffee date with one of the catalysts who can explain their particular area more in depth. If they don't see something that they're particularly interested in, or maybe what they are interested in, we don't have opportunities right now, let's have a conversation about it, because it could be something that we develop an opportunity. It could be a goal area where we just didn't have anyone to take that on. And if they were interested in doing that, that might be an opportunity. So we're really open to, and we really enjoy the face-to-face conversations if that is something that your student would be open to. There is, we're all busy people, but there is always time. to meet with someone to talk about how they would like to get involved in the community. And again, it could be me. It could be where I hand that off to Pearl, because that might be a better fit, like through Convo, or specific, like through, if it's health professions, like I would send them up to Jeff and the folks in career services. What's great about like civic engagement is there's not competition in what we do. There's only collaboration. And I feel like that crosses across campus with civic engagement. So stop by and see us, send us an email, or be a part of our newsletter and Instagram.
Awesome. Thanks, Tommy. And so in terms of internships, Jeff, do students have to be upperclassmen to take on internships? And what about, are there internships yet that are specific to data science?
Yeah. So students of any year can do an internship. We tend to see that upperclassmen tend to do more of them just because that's when it's kind of coming across their minds. But we find when students do them earlier, they tend to have more career skills built and are, I don't want to say more employable because that's not the correct way to say it, but they have an easier time finding employment after graduation. And when it comes to data science, I would recommend your student just come directly talk to me. My emails appear on the screen because there are ways, but I don't want to spend a ton of time getting into it here. I'm also going to have walk-in hours on Fridays for computer and data science students. So they can look for the flyer to see the time for that.
Excellent. Thanks, Jeff. And can internships be for partial time in the summer, or are they typically a full summer situation?
I would say most of the ones I see are for the full summer. They can have a couple weeks off at the beginning or end, but I do see most of them are for the full summer. I think if you are kind of doing one of those internships where you find it yourself and then you kind of arrange with the employer rather than have it be a posted internship, you can negotiate it a bit more. So if you wanted to take like some time off in July, or if you wanted to do a half summer, it's easier when you do it that way. But I'd say more often I see just full summer internships.
Excellent. Thanks so much.
I'll just jump in there, Eric, quickly. For the Lear Summer Service interns, they actually must be upperclassmen, either uprising juniors, seniors, or grad students are actually eligible for the Lear funds. And they also can be short-term, just as a specialty internship, but they can be, 3 weeks or 4 weeks.
Excellent. And a question just came in about housing for summer interns. I believe we do have summer housing available, but do any of you know for sure if we house our summer interns?
I'm working on it. Yes. So I would say TBD, we have been able to offer that in the past. I'm very much hoping that we can offer that again this summer. I have not gotten final confirmation on that yet, but it is actively being discussed and pursued. I should know, I'm hoping in a couple weeks here.
Excellent. Thanks, Tommy. And I think this is a perfect question as a lightning round for all three of you. How does Willamette encourage or guide students who don't necessarily have a service-oriented mindset? How do we get them to be involved in service? What's the wide end of the funnel look like for you all?
I'll jump in. First is, I think often the kind of one-time, one-day in and out volunteer opportunities get a bad rap. Sometimes that's deserved, but not always. I think in the way that we've really tried to be intentional about structuring that they can be a really great on-ramp into a more in-depth experience if somebody wants it, right? And by offering those through athletic teams, because there's a natural community and a kinship, a bond within that community. It could be with a floor of your residence hall, a fraternity, a sorority, a club, a class. So approaching it from all angles, where this is something that your friends are doing. You already have this other passion, or you have this other thing in common, as an option, right? So there's also that social, like, well, everyone else is doing it. I want to hang out with my friends. This is what we're doing, is an option. The one thing we don't do is we don't require volunteer hours. We don't require, there's no volunteer graduation requirement. And I'll be really frank about why we don't do that is because if someone is just really opposed to it and doesn't want to do it, we don't want you to do it out in the community, because that might put community or our relationship with community partners at risk. So there's no stick, right? It's only carrot. So however we can, I guess, lead people to that carrot, we're going to do it. And what I love is that, like, Pearl is doing this. And so if the orientation of a student is through spiritual or religious life, that there are opportunities there. Or if you're career focused, there's opportunities there. If sports are your thing, there's opportunities there. This is not just a my office thing. This is a Willamette thing. I would even say it's kind of hard to avoid civic engagement because it's what we do. And then Pearl and Jeff, I'd love to hear your ideas on that.
I can go first. I think for us in the Career Center, a lot of it has to do with thinking forward. So it's a lot of students find it really scary to think about careers post Willamette. But some of these opportunities within civic engagement are really great ways to build those skills. And you don't have to have a massive commitment to do so as well. You don't have to be committing a full summer to figuring out if you want to do something. And so we try to share that whenever we talk to students. We go into classes. We spoke to every single first-year student this year through the colloquium program. So the Career Center is becoming really hard to avoid. And so we're trying to spread our message through that.
No, I don't know. I'll just add that, one of the things I enjoy about my office is providing a space and an opportunity for students to purge what is within them out. And we have a very, what I would call a progressive student body, and they have a lot to say and they have a lot of questions. And so, I like to say that, we provide space for them to stir up the dust and plant seeds. And so, yeah. I just think that it's I'm thinking particularly about convocation, which is, every week, every semester, an opportunity for a student who has a lot within them to try it out, to experiment. It's a lab. It's not, you can't do it wrong, right? But you can stir up the dirt. You can stir up the dirt and then plant some seeds. Yeah.
Excellent. What a wonderful way to wrap us up for the evening. We've come to time, and perfectly so. And so I want to say thanks very much to Tommy and Jeff and Pearl for this evening's presentation. Hopefully our audience found this information valuable and inspiring. And to our audience, we hope you'll consider joining us for the last forum of this year's series that's scheduled for April 24th at 5:30 p.m. You'll get an email invitation similar to the one that you received for this forum. And at that session, we'll wrap up the year, including the latest information about commencement. We'll take a look ahead at this coming summer and into next fall. So thanks again for joining us this evening, and please take care, everyone.